So today, I'll be talking about the increasing wealth gap in the United States of America, and this is for my Communications 101 class, my informative speech. So let's get started. A fun fact, the top 1% of Americans hold more wealth than the entire middle class. And today I will explain what the wealth gap is, what causes the wealth gap, and how it affects the middle class Americans and society today. So let's get started. So what is the wealth gap? The wealth gap is the uneven distribution of assets. And by this doesn't only account for income, this also means like your net worth, your like assets, savings, cars, whatever you have, everything. And according to the Federal Reserve, as of 2022, the top 10% of Americans hold more than 70% of wealth. So let's take a look at this pie chart, which depicts the uneven distribution of wealth across America. So we're going to start off with the bottom 90%, which only hold about 23% of wealth in America. And then we go to the top 10%, so the next 9% hold about 35% of wealth in America. And then the top 1% holds a staggering 42% of wealth in America, which doesn't sound too fair, does it? Now that we talked about what the wealth gap is, let's talk about what causes the wealth gap. So first off, unequal pay. CEO salary has risen 940% since 1978 compared to average worker pay, which has only risen 12%. And this means the higher ups of the company, the executives, the CEOs, have an increasing salary and tend to make a lot more and make more increasingly compared to average middle class workers who work for their company. And also generational wealth. So generational wealth, by this I mean families who are richer, that wealth is typically like passed down between families. So the rich stay rich, and that makes it harder for like middle and lower class people to like climb the ladder of wealth. So let's talk about the impacts of the wealth gap now that we talked about the causes. First, I'll talk about the educational impacts. There is unequal school funding in poor areas. And by this, I mean kids who don't have as much money or live in more poverty areas have less access to technology and teaching stuff and just tools that would help them get better in education. And having a good education is also directly linked to having a higher income. So this affects it. And then also a fun fact is kids from wealthy families are 77 times more likely to go to an elite college compared to kids who are not wealthy. So yeah. And also let's talk about healthcare. So healthcare is very expensive in the United States of America. This makes a lot of like lower income and middle class people not be able to afford healthcare. And the wealthy can afford better healthcare. They have access to better hospitals and better technology. And on average, a fun fact is that the wealthy tend to live 10 to 15 years longer compared to everybody else. And so the wealth gap isn't only a statistic, it's a growing issue in America. Thank you guys for listening. I appreciate it.